Well, Bill, just like entrepreneurship is iterative, you go out into the world, then you're back to the drawing board. We're back here with you.
It's nice to be back here, and we're going to be looking inward in this step, whereas all the previous steps we've been really focused outward. So it's a change of pace here.
It's great that you mentioned that, because it's very common to hear entrepreneurs say, hey, our secret sauce is this, and investors ask for, what is your secret sauce? What is your secret sauce? Let's talk about that.
Well, it's important to have secret sauce, unique selling proposition, or what we're going to refer to as the core, but that's not where you start. You have to start with the customer and then kind of figure out what your core is and why it's relevant to them. But you do have to have something that makes you uniquely qualified to provide the solution to the customer. Otherwise, you're just creating a market that someone else will be able to reap the benefits of. And that's not a very smart move, because it's very expensive to create a market. If you create the market, you want to reap the dividends from spending that investment to create the market.
Let me play skeptic for a minute. You advocate focus on the persona, and if you identify a painful problem that the persona hasn't solved, why do you need to care about anything else, such as the core?
Because you don't want to be in a situation where you incur all this investment of money, time, effort, intelligence, and then create a market that you turn around and somebody else owns. That's not a sustainable business. You spent money here, but you didn't reap the rewards here. That's a business that's going to be out of business quickly. What we need to do is think about, once we create this business, what is it that we can uniquely do that the customers will want to come to us because we provide more value to them than anybody else.
Can you give an example of a core at one of your companies?
Sure. At Sensible, we had this device which we're well known for, which is a Phantom. And it would allow you would hold this and you would go in and you would have a 3D image in the computer, and this would allow you to touch it, feel it, change it, deform it, and the like.
So you can edit products that you're creating.
Absolutely. And to everyone, it seemed like our core was this piece of hardware. However, that for us was not the core. That was kind of one of the outer motes. At the core is really what's at the center, that one thing that you do that you will protect above all else that nobody else can replicate. That would be the hardest thing. So if you think of it as a castle, there are outlying moats. And then the one in the middle is the crown jewels. For us, the hardware was a very imposing moat for people, but we knew that the hardware was something that could potentially be reverse engineered. And so we thought long and hard about what is it that we can do better than anybody else. But the key to us, we realized, was the software, and not just the software, but the engine within the software that created the ability to do 3D touch. That is very, very heavy-duty algorithms, and we were uniquely positioned to do that before anybody else, because you needed to have the hardware first, and we were the only one that had the hardware. But someone could catch up with the hardware, but if we had the software, we knew where the great people were to write that software, and we could get miles ahead of other people. So even when they finally caught up to us, they broke through this outlying moat of the hardware, they still would just give up when they saw how far ahead we were on the software.
But what forced you at the time to think that you need to be thinking about your core?
We had a very clear personal objective. We wanted to build a great company in a 5-year time horizon. And so I had done a lot of work before this, and I had been in a company where we didn't have a strong core. And so I was determined that we would create a market, and then we would own that market.
And am I right to infer that once you've realized that your core is software, not hardware, you made many of the important decisions based on that realization of the core?
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't go out and tell the world this was what it was, but we spent a lot of time recruiting the best people at MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, and Georgia Tech to be on our team. We looked at who were the leaders in that and got them as advisors. We thought about our incentive structure, how the company's physical layout was set up, because our core, we needed to develop this at very rapid pace, because at the end of the day, this was going to be that thing that would protect us above all else.
How much of deciding what your core is should be driven by who you are as a person, who your co-founders are, you as a team, than by a rational deduction of what it should be?
You're going to be balancing these two things. You have to figure out what the customer wants and what you're good at, but you also have to figure out what you're passionate about. Because when you start a company, you're not doing it for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. You better plan on doing it for 6 years, and you better love what you're doing. Because if you don't, you're not going to be really good at it, and the people around you are going to know it, and they're not going to be passionate about it. So your core better be something that you can get excited about, and you will think kind of competitively, how do I defend this? How do I defend the family jewels, the crown jewels? And that's how you need to think about it, as well as it being the logical decision that's best for your customers, where you have assets to actually deliver on that core as well.